Well, welcome to the Unboxing the Office podcast, episode 6. And I think this is going to be our best one yet. Corporate culture, health and wellness, they are all connected. And today, we're talking to a number one best-selling author in the space, highly sought after, much sought after keynote speaker. And of course, you notice the paddle? We're going to talk about adventurer, Christian father of 3, an individual who studied workplace behavior for over 20 years, whose insights are featured in the Wall Street Journal, HuffPost, Harvard Business Review. We'll talk about that one, and Forbes, whose clients include Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, and professional associations. Joshua Evans, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always funny when other people read it because you have to just kind of sit there and eat it.
I spent weeks memorizing that.
It's just embarrassing, right, to kind of hear it all laid out because it makes me seem really impressive, and I don't necessarily feel that I am, but I love it. Thank you.
I should have added humble servant to the intro. Yes. That is why this man is I'm not afraid to say, one of my mentors.
That is very nice of you to say. I honestly don't know if I'm that humble, but I'm often given opportunities to practice being humble.
Yes.
Just like patience.
Yes. But first, a word from our sponsor, HotLogic, the AI oven, the alternative to the microwave in the vending space and the corporate break room. No more standing online. No more stuffing that lunch in the refrigerator, only to spend your lunch hour waiting for that infernal machine to blast it. No more of that for you. Check out HotLogic. Now back to the program. So I got to ask, as I love to do, because I live to put people on the spot. You've been in this game for 20 years, and we are now entering the age of AI.
Oh, it's a new world.
AI is going to wipe out all our jobs. True or false?
False.
Explain.
AI is a tool just like anything else. Do I think it's going to wipe out jobs? Not entirely. I think it's going to make certain parts and aspects of jobs easier. A lot of the menial tasks that occupy our time today are not going to be able to be handled by AI, which is great. And I think it's a useful tool, whether it's collating information, going out and doing research for you. But at the end of the day, you're still going to need human beings. And I think the problem today is there's too much uncertainty around AI. So people see it and it's something that they're scared of, they're worried, they don't know. It's creating this hum of anxiety right around business and where we're going into the future. And to be honest with you, people need to stop being scared of AI and start being curious. Because the more curious you are, the more you find out about it, the more you know, the more you can understand how it's going to fit into your life. Now, anybody that's out there and like, I don't want to do anything with AI, I don't want to use it, I strongly urge you just to get a little curious. Try a few things out. I'll give you an example. I love to cook. It's one of my favorite things to do for my family. I cook most nights of the week. I grill 6 to 8 times a week. I love it. I love cooking. But my biggest problem with cooking is when I'm looking for new recipes, I have to read through somebody's ridiculous history about visiting their grandma in rural Ohio and trying to cook with their grandma. I don't want to read the story. I just need to know what temperature to start the oven because I got 3 kids screaming at me. AI eliminates a lot of the fluff, a lot of the stuff we don't necessarily want that can just boil down to the information I need in that moment, which is very useful for me. It saves me a lot of time and a lot of unnecessary reading. Just an example.
I happen to know that woman's grandmother, and she's a very dear, sweet woman.
Oh, I'm sure she's lovely, and I bet her minced pie is divine.
All right, we'll give you a pass for that one.
Okay.
So is this something that you deal with a lot of? Can I talk about the companies?
Sure.
You deal with a lot of large organizations: American Express, Baptist Health, Merck, Starbucks. They're asking about AI. Are they?
They are. What the thing is right now, what we've seen is there isn't huge pushes within organizations for everybody to switch over to AI. It's become more of a personal decision, right? To either add Gemini or to jump on ChatGPT to kind of gather some information for you. It's a very individual experience in this moment. But what I see moving into the future is organizations are going to have to start hiring people that are AI experts to come in and help them revamp their entire systems, because the way that we've been doing business in the past is not going to be the same way moving forward. And so it's shifting the environment again, just like everything shifted in 2020. There's another huge shift coming.
How can organizations, I want to ask, how can organizations prepare but it's already here. So what are you seeing organizations doing right now?
Well, what I've seen is them trying to find out what their teams are already using AI for, right? Because it is here. Whether you want to use it or not, organizations are struggling, right? Leaders are struggling to find out what parts of jobs people are actually using AI for. So recently I was talking with a chief human resource officer, and she was talking about they had a new employee that came onto their team, and they wanted to put together a new manual for the organization that has all their policy and all of their expectations. And she told this person, this is what we're going to do. This is the project we're working on this month. And 30 minutes later, she walked in, hey, here we go. Here's our new manual. She's like, wait, hold on. Where did you get this? She's like, well, I went and I prompted AI and I had ChatGPT build us our new employee handbook. And the person was aghast, like, how can you do that? She's like, well, let's just walk through it together. And so they couldn't believe that the work could be done so fast because they thought it was going to take a month to build a new employee handbook from scratch. But it did take work. And so you can't just take what AI gives you and just go, okay, this is what we're going to use. You still have to review it. You still have to make sure that it fits the organization, the culture, and the type of organization you're going to build. But it's these new ideas that we need to be open to, because if it's saving us a month's worth of time and 2 full-time salaried employees' efforts, like, why wouldn't you want to be using something like that? As I said, it's something to embrace. It's something to be curious about. And most importantly, it's not something to be scared of.
But
there are scary aspects of it.
Yes,
don't get me wrong.
Yes.
There are very scary aspects of it. But I think using discernment in how you use it in your daily activities is very invaluable.
As my wife would say, there's no Hollywood movie that ever had a happy ending for AI.
No, it's always the robots taking over.
Right. And Elon Musk has said as much. I think he suggested that there's a 10% chance that the robots will take over and it'll be the end of humanity.
Well, 10% seems low, and so I like that number.
Oh, I was hoping 10% was high. But, of course, Elon says a lot of things.
He does.
One of my favorite quotes is, the most likely outcome will be the most ironic. Not knowing what that means.
It's a very postmodernist view of the world.
Right?
I kind of like it.
Yes. But organizations are scared. What you're suggesting, and I think you're channeling your inner Ted Lasso, be curious, right? What does that mean for a large enterprise? There are people who are already, it's amazing. The people have already taken upon themselves to leverage these technologies. So now these organizations have to figure out, okay, who's doing what? What can we make the most of? Where do we go now? Do you see any folks who are out there on the bleeding edge leading the charge, or is this a slow, steady progression?
It's definitely not a slow or a steady progression. I think we're seeing large leaps within organizations. We're seeing large leaps in the actual platforms that are offering AI. And so I don't know of any organizations that are way ahead the curve, right? You're always going to have the financiers, right, that are willing to throw money at tech to see what works and figure out, doing their spaghetti theory and figure out which ones are best. But I've not seen any organization that is, leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else. But it is this leapfrog where somebody gets a new tool and they jump ahead, and then their competition finds something better and they jump ahead.
I guess I might add to that list of questions. What's the biggest mistake an organization can make right now when it comes to this new era of AI?
Waiting. Doing nothing, doing things the way things have been. If you're going to wait, your organization's going to atrophy. Your team members are not going to be as productive as your competition, and you're going to fall behind. If you're not willing to adapt, you're going to fail.
Sage counsel. So for us humans,
oh yes,
us insignificant.
I almost forgot about them.
Yes, us insignificant humans. What are we to do? Yeah, working inside these organizations, obviously we're taking advantage of the technology as we're able to, as we're allowed. But we're worried about our jobs. We see people get laid off all the time. We're looking left, we're looking right, we're wondering who's next. What's our role in all this as employees?
So we spoke this earlier. I mean, there is a fear associated with AI, and it's coming for our jobs. It's going to make my job easier or make my job harder. What I think people should realize is that the future of work is not going to be about work. It's going to be about people. And in this future, I think the best organizations are going to be those that help their team members form an emotional connection to their contribution. And not just in the day-to-day, but towards a much larger picture of what their organization is doing and the benefactors of their efforts.
I've seen, and by the way, I agree wholeheartedly in everything you just stated, but I've seen already a leveling of the playing field in terms of technology, particularly software. When it comes to software, I'll suggest the era of technology supremacy is over, because you can copy paste software now, which is really scary in its own right. But you mentioned, of course, the future is intended to be human. With what we're looking at right now, with everything being automated, what does that mean? What does that mean for us?
Okay, so, and this is going to come off as a desire, and this is a desire of mine. I deeply desire the next shift to be a human one.
The next shift.
How many shifts have we gone through recently?
I don't know. What are you talking about? The next shift to be human?
The next shift in
what
the way
have we
that we
been
approach
doing?
business. I would argue that we've been doing a lot of things that are inherently unhuman or inhumane to the individual workforce.
Well, okay, you have to explain.
Okay, so
I need examples.
All right, I've got it. So right now, say somebody goes and they're working for a job and they have this list of tasks that they have to complete for that job, and you go, we're going to give you this stack of money to do this list of tasks. And the employee goes, okay, great, and they get their stack of money, right? And then your competition comes to them and says, hey, I have the same list of tasks and a little bit more money. What have we done to make that person say, no, I don't want more money. I like this organization better? We haven't. What we've done is they'll go, okay, and then we get upset because they've gone across the street. And what I would argue is that we've been bribing people to be at our organizations, right? It's mercenary behavior. So I think we need to end this whole mercenary behavior, because what have we done? We started with, people had pensions and the gold watch after 20 years, and those have, fallen out of favor. So then all of a sudden, okay, we're going to give you 401k, and we're going to give you the Roth 401k, and we're going to give you, matching, and now we're going to give you health insurance. And these are not benefits, these are bribes. It doesn't create you can't buy loyalty, okay? And so I think the biggest problem right now is we're incentivizing this mercenary behavior. And so people are just trying to stack up the things that they're getting from their organization, which is a hollow, shallow way to view your role. Organizations need to stop competing on a level of greed with their team members. And there's a much easier, better, and I would argue sustainable way to get people to actually care about their work and to put in the effort that you want.
Well, I'm taking notes. How do you get people to do what you want them to do without bribing them?
Okay, we're gonna dive down this rabbit hole. So
yeah, we got to talk about this. I need the answer.
Individuals are very good about talking about what their job is. It's your title, right? It sits in your email signature. It's on your LinkedIn profile. It's on your business card if you still have those funny things. That's what your job is. It's not compelling to the deep human need to know that our work matters. And the thing is, our work actually does matter. Next, we're also really good about describing what somebody in our role does. It's that list of tasks, functions, responsibilities, the KPIs behind somebody's role. And that's where we focus. This is what my title is, and this is what somebody in this role does, and I'm going to do those things, and then you're going to trade me money for that. But that's the shallow end of the pool. I think it's easy to be in the shallow end of the pool. It's not scary. There's no worry about getting hurt or drowning. It's easy to play in the shallow end of the pool. What I'm suggesting to leaders within organizations and also to individuals themselves is you have to be willing to go to the deep end of the pool. Forget what your role is and what somebody in that role does. What you need to be thinking about is what doing great work in that role means. What it means to everybody that depend on you. Not just your team members, not just your company, not just the shareholders, and not just your customers. I think go much deeper than that if we allow ourselves to. I got a fun story if you want to hear it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm all about the stories.
Okay, so I was in Tucson, Arizona for an event. And then the next morning I had a 6 a.m. flight out to go to New York for another event. And so I had an Uber scheduled to pick me up at 4 a.m. outside the Days Inn in Tucson, Arizona. So I'm sitting there with my luggage, and up rolls this little sedan. And I've already done my research because I've gotten in the wrong Uber before. And so she rolls in her window and she's like, "Are you Joshua?" And I was like, "Are you Gabrielle?" And she's like, "Yes, hop in." I was like, "Awesome. Can I get in the front seat?" And like, I'm that guy. I like to be in the front seat of the Uber because I have a captive audience and I like to study the human condition. And this is a perfect opportunity because she wants a 5-star review and I want a conversation. So I get in her front seat and off we head towards the airport. So we start chatting. I know that anybody that's driving for Uber, especially at that time of night, is doing it because they're trying to make money to fund some sort of passion project, something that they actually care about. So I want to know what they're doing when they're not driving for Uber. And I go, "Gabriella, when you're not driving for Uber, what do you do?" And she goes, "Well, I manage an upscale restaurant here in the Tucson area." I go, "Wow, that must be so fulfilling." And she goes, "No, it's not. So my line of questioning is ruined. So I'm just sitting there. She must have felt the awkward silence, because then she said something I've never heard before. She goes, actually, what I'm really passionate about is driving for Uber. It's like, time out.
What?
I've never heard that. I've heard I like the flexibility. I like the pay. I've heard, sir, please don't throw up in the back. But I've never heard an Uber driver say...
We'll talk about that one.
No, let's not. I've never heard an Uber driver say, I'm passionate about driving for Uber. So I dig in why. And she tells me that she only drives from midnight to 6 a.m. because that's when she thinks people need help getting home the most. She even went on to tell me she would go down to the bar district next to the university, and if she sees people that shouldn't be driving, she'll offer them free rides home just so they're not out on the road, which is amazing, because people say, oh, I would do my job even if they didn't pay me. But this is a woman that's actually doing that.
And a woman driving at night in challenging areas.
Yes. Now, I had to dive in deeper. I was like, okay, so why has this become your passion project? She's like, well, 2 years ago, my sister died in a drunk driving accident. I don't want anybody else to go through that same pain. So I go out and I make sure people get home safely.
Wow.
Now, we need more Gabriellas in the world, to be honest with you. But the reason I find this story so compelling is that there are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Uber drivers all over the United States, right? And internationally even, right? Hundreds of thousands of them. But I've only met one that views their role through the lens of the deeper end of the pool, right? The deep end of the pools, right? Because every Uber driver knows what their role is. It is Uber driver, taxi service, right? They know what somebody in that role does. They accept a fare, they pick up the fare, they drive the fare, drop up the fare, accept the next fare. But the reason Gabriella is different is because she did that extra step towards that deep into the pool, as I'm calling it. Instead of the shallow end of the pool, what the role is and what somebody in that role does, she thought about what doing that great work means. And it means that this individual is now home safely. Right? It means that they've arrived at the destination. What she's really providing everybody that gets into her cab is peace of mind. And if we were to dive deep enough into any of our roles, we could get to that level of emotional connection, to that contribution, but we don't allow ourselves to do it. It's too easy for us to put up that professional facade, to keep at arm's length, to not be emotionally invested, because if you do get laid off from a job that you're emotionally invested in, it hurts. Yes. It hurts a lot.
Yes.
It's just like being in a relationship where you're putting everything forward, and then for some reason it breaks apart. And it's hard to unpack that later, but if you're not willing to be emotionally invested in that role, you're never going to have true fulfillment, which I think is what we're really seeking, right? Knowing that our work matters.
Wow. That's a great story. And this podcast is not sponsored by Uber, but we're willing to talk. I have to ask, have you had any correspondence with Gabriella since?
No, actually, and I probably should have gotten her permission to tell that story in my book. But I didn't use her last name, so I guess that's...
Gabriella, if you're listening, DM us, and
I'll send you a copy.
And we'll send you a copy, autographed by the author, of course. Oh, my goodness. So how... I mean, and you've told that story before.
Oh, yeah.
And...
Well, it's just so compelling, right? I mean, this woman's out there doing some really amazing work. And it's any other Uber driver could take the same perspective if they chose to do it.
So you have a CEO sitting in front of you talking about all of his or her concerns about AI, and you respond by sharing with him a story about an Uber driver. How does that go?
Well, their concerns about AI start once again from the unknown, right? And I think right now in this modern world, we're facing levels of uncertainty that we've never before experienced. And I think it's having a significant impact on our teams and how they work together, right? It's causing people to become overwhelmed and burn out and unfulfilled. But if you have to boil it down to what I think the vast majority of people are feeling, and like the real like root emotion, it's this overwhelming sense of being lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it didn't start out that way, right? Nobody started on their first day of work and goes, I can't wait to be mediocre. Like, that doesn't happen. Right? Everybody started from a place where they were engaged and had purpose behind the work that they're doing. But after months and years in a row, we lose sight of why we cared so much. We get stuck in the day-to-day minutia, the tasks, the functions, the responsibilities, the shallow end of the pool stuff.
That's how it's built. That's the capitalist model. As I like to say, the worst form of economy except for all the rest.
The financial pieces behind it, that's how it's built. Now, how do you maintain these organizations? Okay, so this is gonna be fun. So there's a 17-year study they did recently where they studied organizations, right, that had on their core values, right, and the top 3 of their core values was seeking purpose in their work. All right. And they compared those organizations over a 17-year period to the S&P 500. So over the 17-year period, the S&P 500 grew 112%. Okay.
Good.
It's not bad.
It's great.
Right?
I'd love to have that.
Now, these organizations that had purpose as one of their core values, they grew over 1,300%.
1,300%.
Yeah, that means
the same time period.
Yeah, the same exact 17-year period. That means that organizations with purpose grew 14 times faster than the S&P 500. Okay, so if we're only focused on the bottom line, if we're only focused on the numbers, we're missing out on huge potentials. These organizations, they still met their bottom lines. They're still going after the capitalistic goals of an organization, which is to turn a profit, but they look at it differently. If we give our team members the tools to care about the work will be better, the profits will be higher, and there's probably fewer layoffs.
So I'm going to challenge you.
Challenge me.
I mean, I need a copy of that study. First of all, love it. But I have to challenge this line of thinking.
It's counterintuitive, and I know that, but please challenge it.
I'm thinking that this is like God's plan versus man's plan. We're doing what we think is best, but maybe not so much. In the capitalist model, which I'm a big fan of course, every CEO is held to account every 90 days. Public companies, and that's why, of course, a lot of organizations are going private. But public companies have to provide a report every 90 days, an accounting of what they've done, what they've accomplished. And the classic question is, how do you invest for the long term when you're, of course, measured in 90-day increments? You add AI to this puzzle, and now
everything's accelerated.
Right. And it's the word that keeps bouncing inside my brain is exploitation. How do we make the most of this technology? And
well, exploitation of the technology, but I think we should stop it at exploitation of our team members.
Right. Exploitation of our team members is what I'm more concerned about.
Okay, can I give you a real world example that's not business related? Okay, so me and my kids were at the garden center.
I love your socks.
Thank you very much. I like them as well.
Yes.
Fun to travel with.
Yeah.
Anyway, so me and my kids, we're at the garden center. We have a lovely garden in our backyard. We grow lots of vegetables. It's great. But we go to the garden center, and one of my kids came running up to me. He goes, "Daddy, there's a praying mantis egg for sale. It's $4.95. Well, $5 is a cheap price to pay for a kid's happiness.
You can buy a
praying mantis egg.
Praying mantis?
Oh yeah, it's like that big, and it comes in a cylindrical ice cream quart container.
Like not a toy, but
an actual praying mantis egg. And so it's for the garden because they'll come out and they'll eat the aphids and they'll protect your garden. So
wow.
Yeah. So same with ladybugs as well. I've gone deep into the garden because my kids are into it. So I get into it. Nevertheless,
buy the praying mantis egg. Amend your intro. Gardener extraordinaire.
I don't know about that. So take the praying mantis egg home. The kids are complaining they can't see it because it's in this cardboard container. So I take it out and I put it in like a large glass cylinder, right, like a vase. And I just sat on our counter for weeks. There's no upkeep to a praying mantis egg. It just sat there. I forgot it was even there. Till one morning, I walk over to start the coffee maker, and there's a baby praying mantis on the coffee maker. And I was like, oh, it hatched. Awesome. Kids, come check it out. The egg hatched. And my kids are running downstairs, and I look over to where the egg was. And here's what became a problem. So there weren't several praying mantises. There weren't dozens of praying mantises. There were hundreds of praying mantises that came out of this little egg, and they were all over the kitchen, right? So they've climbed up the bookshelf.
My goodness.
They're on the cookbooks. They're on the microwave. They've made that jump, the gap to the island in the middle of the kitchen. I don't even know how they got to the island, but there was some on the island. So I'm laughing because it's just hysterical. My kids are pointing out all the places, and then I'm struck with something, all right? I realize I don't have an aversion to insects. My better half does. She's going to be awake soon.
I would imagine.
And so I have to figure out how I'm going to get these probably thousands of praying mantises out of my house and into the garden, right? So, I mean, the only workforce I have are my 3 kids. And so, okay, guys,
you didn't have
guess what?
You didn't have a flute?
No, I'm not going to pipe
no,
them
piccolo.
out.
Is it a piccolo or a flute?
I think it's a piccolo.
That's the image I have in my mind. Yes.
Now, anyway, so I gather my kids around, and you can approach this a couple of different ways, right? And so I need them to move these praying mantises outside. So knowing my children, knowing the incentives that they like, I start with, hey guys, we've got a problem. The praying mantises have hatched, which is exciting, but they're going to starve inside of our house.
Nice.
And we really need them to be in our garden to help protect our garden from all the bugs that are trying to eat our tomatoes and our carrots and all of our herbs. We need to get them out to the garden, and they'll die without our help. See, now they're emotionally connected to the end result that I need them to do.
Right.
So I armed each one with a popsicle stick and an index card, and they're scraping, running them out to the garden, right? So dozens at a time. I'm very proud of them. They're doing this. They're helping. We're saving all the praying mantises. Now, I will say there were a few casualties.
Yes.
But you're going to get that when you give a 5-year-old a popsicle stick and they're smearing them into the counter.
Yes.
But so they're gathering up and running them outside. And luckily we got almost all of them up. I clean everything up. My wife comes out, and I haven't started the coffee yet, right? She likes it started before she gets to the kitchen. And so she comes out and she said, oh, there's a praying mantis on the coffee. And I forgot the first one that we had like left on the coffee maker. Nevertheless, we finally got him out, and she responded better than I thought she would. But the reason I tell this story is because if I had this problem, right? This is the project for today is we have to get the praying mantises outside, right? If I was a traditional business leader, a manager, whatever you want to call me, I would have said, hey, team, we need to get these praying mantises outside in the next 20 minutes. Go.
Right. And
they would have hemmed, hawed, oh, Dad, do we have to? Right. Yeah, I don't want. No, but because I took that extra step, and it is an extra step to get them emotionally connected to the end result, right? Like, guys, the praying mantises are going to die. They've trusted us to let them hatch in an environment that's going to be good for them. They're going to die inside of our house unless we get them food. Also, it benefits us because it's going to protect our garden. We're all now emotionally invested in what we're trying to accomplish. And I think that's where the real rubber meets the road in the business world, is that too often we think just about the end goal. We don't talk about the real impact that goes down behind it. People arriving home safely. People, no, I'm just dropping somebody off at their house because they ordered an Uber. No, you're helping them arrive home safely. We don't take that step to go into that emotional space, right? The deep end of the pool.
How do you accomplish that in a large enterprise at scale?
Well, you have to look beyond because people are very good about putting blinders on with their role, right? Like, this is the project I have in front of me, and then they finish their edge of the project. Like, okay, well, this person, if they even want to think about the impact of their work, well, the next person that deals with this project is going to be happy because I added this stuff in it. But you got to go further down the line. You got to think about the end benefactor, like not just, your clients, right? But what it means to your clients, what it means even beyond that when it gets to, say, what it means to society as a whole. I think we stop short because it's too easy. It's easy to think just about the profits, but if we can actually care about what we're doing, it won't be about the profits. The profits will come. It has to be about the purpose behind it.
Do you think that most large organization executives understand this principle and are simply operating within an environment in which they can't leverage it? Or do you think they don't understand it?
I think at a deep level, most people know that when your work means more to you, that you work harder, right? That you produce better results. I think it's hard in the current business environment for people to focus on it. They have too much on their plate already. They have their lists of tasks, functions, responsibilities for their role, and they constantly focus on that. And the problem is when we're just focused on that, we'll probably get it done, but it's done almost begrudgingly. It's done without the emotional connection behind it. And I think that we're doing a terrible disservice to ourselves and to our teams by allowing people just to play in the shallow end of the pool. I heard a great quote years ago, but it's, you need to believe or you need to leave. And I think if more organizations approach their workforce that way, like believe in the true value of our organization, the true purpose behind it, the meaning, right, that's going into the marketplace, into our clients, into their other spaces, if we can get them to actually believe in it, then they're going to do better work.
There we are channeling our inner Ted Lasso again. Get your yellow construction paper ready. We believe. In full disclosure, my wife and I watched that series twice.
Oh, good for you.
We did enjoy it. So I don't normally do this, but because we're hard charging into the deep end of the pool, and I don't have these answers. And that's why I go to Joshua Evans for these answers.
You need more friends.
I suppose I do.
We all do, I'm sure.
But human connection, that's something we'll talk about next time. But in the work that you do specifically as a workplace expert studying human behavior, how do you counsel organizations to do this?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is empowering the individuals, right? Because nobody wants to, hey, we're doing this whole new initiative that comes from HR where everybody's going to be happy and we're going to do a beach cleanup day and bring your dog to work. Say, well, those just come back. Those are more bribes, right? It's all that is. It's more bribes.
Right.
You're just bribing people to stay.
And folks see through that now.
Absolutely. I mean, heck, look at Zappos. They pay people after their training period, after their 30 days or 60 days, they'll pay people to leave. Like, hey, because if somebody takes the money, they'll give them $5,000. Hey, just leave right now. Here's $5,000 just to leave the organization. And guess what? The people that take it, their hearts weren't in it.
Wait. They pay people to leave?
Yeah. Why are you paying people to stay that don't want to be there? Pay people to leave.
That's extraordinary.
You flip it. Why not? Why wouldn't you do that? If you could get rid, you know how much money disengagement costs organizations every single, in the United States, it's over $600 million just last year.
Quiet quitting.
Quiet quitting, disengagement. It's all a problem. You see it. You can see it on the faces of these people that, they get their coffee, they slink into work, they do the bare minimum,
right,
and they slink back out. And they're doing just enough to not get fired.
To me, that's Office Space. The Bobs.
That movie is so great.
Without question, I watch too many movies. I'm looking forward to the day where I can live my life only speaking in movie quotes. I don't know if that's a good idea, but I can give you a TV quote for that. They did it in Star Trek. But so in 20 years now, could you have possibly anticipated, as the expression goes, Joshua Evans, the overnight success story?
Yeah.
20 years in the making, you're walking into the era of AI. And dare I say, Obi-Wan Kenobi, I'm camping on the quote now. Help us, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're our only hope.
Oh, I should not be your only hope for anything. However, 20 years ago, I don't think we could have ever imagined the advances we've had with AI, right? 10 years ago, we couldn't imagine. 5 years ago, when we were still in the throngs of what happened in 2020, there's no way we could have foreseen how quickly it was going to happen, right? So the landscape is shifting dramatically under our feet.
Yeah. So
to do nothing is going to be a problem.
Well, that brings up, of course, the concerns that we all have. Did I mention the world's on fire? And here comes AI. We're all going to lose our jobs. False. And I got to get up every morning and go to work and wait to get yelled at by my boss. We are still organic creatures subject to emotions. And we're chemical reactions in progress, subject to the swings of those emotions. In a world that's on fire, how do we deal with that day to day? The anxiety levels all-time high, depression all-time high, suicide all-time high. How do we just make it through the day?
That's a very good question. So I mean, you're talking about how we have this low level of destruction going on in society,
yes.
And then now you're placing disruption on top of destruction, and that's a rough place to be. It's terrible. I think that uncertainty causes a lot of people to retreat. It causes them to be dependent upon things. It causes people to disengage from their work, disengage from relationships, to be distant, and that's not a good thing for human beings. And we're emotional creatures, right? We're communal creatures. We're drawn to these things. But yet, as you talked about, if I want the next big shift to be human, I think we do need to realize a lot of the shifts we had recently have not been human-centric.
No.
Is that a good thing for us?
And speaking of which, there's social media, which I know you're a big fan of. We live in an instantly transparent world.
Oh, man.
Bereft of connection, right? Which, of course, is pouring fuel on that fire. How do we accommodate that?
That's a good question. I think
I told you I'd put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I think too many people make light of their addiction to social media.
Right.
Of their addiction to likes, of the dopamine that is forced into our brains through a glowing rectangle. And it's rough. I mean, if you really break down the normal life of somebody, is they wake up, they stare at a small glowing rectangle for a little bit, then they stare at a medium rectangle for a little bit during their day, then they eat dinner, and then they sit down with a big rectangle glowing at them while they look at a small rectangle glowing at them, and then they go to bed. What kind of a life is that?
What are we doing?
Well, you're patched in. We thought the Matrix was going to be, these tubes and these giant, fake wombs. No. It's you being tethered to Wi-Fi, isn't it?
Yeah. How do we accommodate that within... there's some organizations, of course, that are making rules about phones and such. And I see a lot of people, and I don't know if it's really going well, I see a lot of people walking around with two phones because you're not supposed to conduct business on your personal phone. And so they'll be talking on their business phone while they're looking at their personal glowing rectangle. I like that expression. This isn't a good thing.
No, I would argue it's not. So here's the deal. even years ago, I think we could see that the phones were a problem. Do you remember like CrackBerry?
Yes.
Everybody had Blackberries,
Yes.
and I remember like people just like addicted to it, sitting in meetings, right? Like this is gonna place that I had a company issued BlackBerry at one time, and I'd
Yes.
sit in the meetings playing Brick Breaker while everybody else is paying attention. But every single individual is constantly being influenced by the things in their life, whether it's their relationship with their friends, text messages, emails, social media. We're constantly being influenced. And so they estimate that what an individual is bombarded with over 10,000 advertisements in a single day. If we go back 100 years, that's more than an individual would face their entire lifetime.
Yeah.
And we're facing it every single day.
Yeah.
We're constantly being influenced, every single one of us. Like, I use this example a lot of my talks where I ask, okay, who here reads, watches, or listens to the news in the morning before work? And you get a bunch of people raising their hands, and I say, you should stop it. And then people laugh. They go, it's like, hold on. Like, because the whole thing is like, no, Josh, I'm an adult. I can read the news and not allow it to affect me. But I would argue that we're just as susceptible to being influenced as children are, because we know children are easily influenced, right? Like, don't hang out with little Jimmy.
Right.
Or don't watch that television show because they're bad influences. But yet, somehow as adults, we're immune to that. Au contraire, mon frere. I would argue that as adults, we are just as susceptible to being influenced, but we have two things that children don't have. We have the ability to justify doing things that are detrimental to us psychologically, and then we have the ability to rationalize the results of those bad decisions. So if follow me, right?
Yeah.
If you're
No
still
doubt.
skeptical, have you ever gotten into a disagreement with a loved one before work?
Oh, yes.
How was the rest of your day?
Crappy.
It was, right? Everyone's cutting you off on the freeway. Somebody parked in your spot in the parking
Yes.
lot, but
Yes.
it's not assigned spots, but they know that I park there. And then Susan's waiting at my desk to show me pictures of her cat post-surgery.
I forgot to put my lunch in the Hot Logic.
Yeah, you forgot to put your lunch in the Hot Logic. And what shouldn't have been a bad day, but had this tiny little bad influence at the beginning of the day, has now turned into this whole thing.
Right.
And so I'm not saying never look at the news. I'm saying don't start your day from that place, because it impacts how you perceive the rest of your day. You're priming the pump for the interactions you have the rest of the day. And if we're not being vigilant about knowing what we're cognizantly allowing into our brains, right, it can really affect us in how we view everyone else. Right? All it takes is one snide remark to ruin my week, or one small compliment to make my day. We wield a tremendous amount of influence in the lives of the people that we come in contact with as well, but we are constantly being influenced, but it happens on such a subconscious level we don't even realize it. The doom scrolling that I see people doing that just sucks them in, and they wonder why they have anxiety. We talked about this the other day. Of course you have anxiety. You drink 2 gallons of coffee and listen to true crime podcasts. Yeah, you're going to have anxiety after that.
Yes, true crime.
People, they fall into patterns, especially social media. They fall into patterns. You know what? A cool thing that I heard somebody did recently to trick their brain, right? Because everybody knows exactly where their apps are on their phone, is to shift all of your apps around on your phone. So you change all the pages where all your apps are, so you don't know where anything is. And if you have to go and search for that app, you're going to pause for a second and ask yourself, do I actually want to go on that app? And it's actually a really neat exercise in retaking control.
All right, so putting you on the spot, what are 3 things you do every day to maintain control?
Well, I first of all, I have 3 young kids and a lovely wife, and I can't control anything. But no, I like to start my day early, and I start from a very quiet place in my day. And I have a morning routine that really focuses on what I need to be doing that day, what I'm able to impact that day, and it really sets me up for success. If I miss my morning routine, I'm a much less effective, much less productive, and even less happy person. So it's something that I started a few years ago. That's a suggestion of a friend of mine, and I've started this morning routine, and it's really been instrumental in help keeping me not just grounded but effective.
Well, I won't ask how your kids feel about it, because I know kids are kids. And I had that challenge myself. But how does your wife feel about your morning routine? Does she know about your morning routine? Does she respect your morning routine?
Yes, but to be honest, I get up before anybody else is up. So my day usually starts around 5:15.
Wow. Okay.
And my wife is still asleep. So
Right.
she knows I have a morning routine, right? But I could have not had one. She wouldn't even know because she's still asleep.
And when she gets up, coffee's ready.
Most of the time. We switched to instant recently because it wasn't ready as quick enough. And it's very funny because I wake up like this and I don't need the coffee to get going. And I'm not really allowed to engage with her until she's had her first cup of coffee. And it's a good thing for our marriage.
How
for me
long
to
have you
wait.
been married?
16 years.
16 years.
16 years last month.
That's wonderful. How old are your kids?
10, 8, and 6.
Wow. You are blessed, my friend, truly blessed.
Oh, I'm very grateful for every minute of it.
I for the sake of the audience, I got to ask, what's the deal with the paddle?
Okay, so the paddle's a prop that I take with me. Now, mind you, there is a replica of this paddle that's now owned by the TSA.
Of course,
because they confiscated it. But yeah, so I'll give you the long story if you want it.
Oh yes.
So over 23 years ago, I was finishing my first semester at college, and somebody came to me and goes, "Hey Josh, how would you like to live in the mountains of Colorado for the summer? You get to go down extreme whitewater rapids during the day and play guitar around the campfire for our guests." And I said, "This sounds too good to be true. Like, what's the catch?" And so there was a catch, but I accepted the role as a whitewater rafting guide, and the catch was I would be living like it was the 1800s. And so I had no running water, no power. I read at night by candlelight in my tent. And so every morning I would have to make coffee for the guys. Obviously, it's a common theme where I'm always making coffee for other people, apparently.
Coffee's important.
It is to many. But so I would have to make coffee in a big metal pot over open fire every morning. Like that's
glorious.
It was. I mean, little house on the prairie, rustic. And it was a very modest operation. We loved to make memorable experiences for all the guests who would join us on the river. And it was a great job. I loved it. It was a lot of fun at first. But we would take people down the river, cook them meals, and then I'd end up playing guitar on the campfire till late into the evening, songs my parents know, right? Like the Beatles and Bob Dylan, the Eagles, all those guys. And so when all the guests would go back to sleep, I'd make my way back to my tent, set my battery-powered alarm clock to go off the next morning to go make the coffee again. And it became this routine, right? So a groove became a rut where now all of a sudden, every day I'm having to take people down the river, make their meals, clean their dishes, play the same songs, and it became very monotonous. And so what it started out as the coolest job in the world, like whitewater rafting, playing guitar, it sounds amazing.
Who wouldn't love this?
It eroded into a list of tasks to be completed and personalities to be managed. And to be honest with you, you can call it disengagement, you can call it quiet quitting, call it whatever you'd like. What had really happened is I stopped caring about my work. I'd lost my sense of purpose. And my only alternative was to try and move back in to my childhood home with my parents, and I wasn't going to do that. So I stayed with the job, and I was still just kind of going through the motions, right? I was physically present, but I was not really there. And then one day we were on the river, and one of my guests lost his paddle at the top of the rapid, and it's literally the worst place to lose your paddle because now he's useless for this part of the river. And he erupted into this visceral frustration. He got angry and he cussed as the paddle floated away from our boat. And I took him over, calmed him down. Hey, it's all right. They float. We'll pick it up after this rapid. It's not a big deal. And in that moment, what I kind of realized, how my guest was feeling in my raft was exactly how I was feeling in my role. You see, he lost his paddle and he felt powerless in the direction of the boat or how he navigated the obstacles. I had lost my sense of purpose in that role, and I felt just as helpless. Now, the real epiphany wouldn't come till years later when I had finished college and made it into the business world. And I realized that each one of us has our sense of purpose in our work, but a lot of times we lose that paddle, right? But it's okay to lose your paddle sometimes because it does happen to all of us. But we need to remember that it's still up to us. We can still reclaim it. We can still grab our paddle, but we have to make that conscious decision to reach back towards our sense of purpose. And so the next question becomes, okay, how do you do that? We know it's important. How can we do that? And that therein lies, I guess, some of the secrets behind the keynotes that I give, is I try to provide people with the tools to help them reclaim their paddle. Because in the beginning, when you first start a job, in the beginning, your intentions are so idealistic, right? Your goals are definitive, and your sense of purpose in that role is very clear. But like a glass door that gets handled too often, smudges begin to appear. It distorts and obstructs our view of the role that we find ourselves in. It happens in all of our roles. It happens in, our professional roles as like VP of XYZ or the chief blankety blank officer, but it also happens in our personal roles as well. Our roles as friend or parent or partner. We forget what doing great work means to all those that depend on us.
Right.
I like to help people remember.
Oh, that's beautiful. So the paddle is your purpose. Your purpose is the paddle.
It's symbolic of purpose. But the reason I always travel with it is because I force my audiences to paddle with me, right? Whether it's 50 people or 5,000 people, I split the audience and I force them to paddle with me through a few rapids. And I do it for a couple of different reasons. One, because it engages the audience, it gets them moving, right? It gets endorphins running. And so now they're actually paying more attention. And the other, it's a great segue into, okay, every one of you was holding your paddle, right? What have you done? Have you reached and re-grabbed your paddle recently? And it becomes kind of a neat symbol, right, to grab your paddle.
How do you get that through TSA?
So
I mean, that's 5 feet tall.
Yes, that is a 5-foot paddle. But so I cut it and then I put dowels in it that are threaded, and so I can break it down into 3 pieces. Yeah, this is the 4th one. So two are with TSA.
2.
There's a
you
third
lost
one.
2.
Yeah, and there's a third one somewhere in Denver. I left it at an event in Denver.
So
and
there's a kayaker who works for TSA that's very happy with their paddle.
But to be honest with you, I'm not sure it's strong enough to actually use on the river, right? But yeah.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so we got to talk about your book.
Oh yes, the latest book.
Purpose or Perish. Because we got to plug the book.
Please plug the book.
What does this mean, purpose or perish?
I would argue that anybody that doesn't have purpose and meaning in the work that they're doing, if you're not fulfilled, you're slowly perishing in that role. Because all it's going to take is a little bit more money for you to go to another company, right?
Right.
So you're already atrophying. You're already slowly dying in that role. And I would argue that it's also the same with AI. If you're not willing to accept these new things, to evolve, to try and meet the new challenges of this new world, you're going to perish as well. And so the reason I like the title Purpose or Perish, and obviously I stole it from the medical field where like you have to publish or perish.
True.
We have to have a sense of purpose in our work, or we will slowly perish. If you're not willing to constantly recommit an emotional connection in your role, you are slowly dying in that role. And the same thing goes for organizations. If you're not willing to make your organization see the deeper purpose behind the work that you're doing, your organization is going to atrophy and perish. And so, the book was a lot of fun. I got to interview some really fascinating people, and it was a long time coming. I was overdue to finish this book.
It's your 2nd book.
Yes.
Oh, it's extraordinary. I can't wait to see your 3rd.
I had some ideas for it.
All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you to do some free consulting for our audience. Those who have listened, those who are watching right now, you've invested in this podcast episode. Now it's time for payback. So, for an executive watching this podcast right now, what executive of a large organization, government agency, or professional association, what are 3 things they can do tomorrow to take advantage of the principles that we've talked about today?
What could they do tomorrow? For themselves or for their teams?
For their teams.
Okay, first, I think highlighting the impact behind people's roles. So there's a really cool organization. It's a assisted living facility company. They own several of them, but the way that they start their meetings is different from any other organization, right? So usually we gather in a meeting. These are the problems we're dealing with. These are what we need done today, right? This is the maintenance schedule. They go through the list of stuff they have to do. That's the shallow end of the pool BS, right?
Yes.
And so forget about what it is and what it does. What this organization does, and so it's called Spring Hills, and I did an event for their executive team. They're phenomenal. But every meeting, what they open with, the opening thing is they read comments that were given to them by either their residents at their facilities or the families of those residents.
Wow.
So when they start a meeting saying, "Thank you so much. My dad has a new lease on life. He's already made friends. He seems like his old self again."
Wow.
When you read stuff like that, doesn't that help you remember what you're actually doing? Because, we know what the job is, right? The job is dispense medication, make sure people are eating, make sure they're not dying in our facilities. But if you're talking about that's what the job is and what it does. But if you're talking about what it means that this family now has peace of mind. It means that this individual now has a reason to live, has new friendships, new relationships that they're forging. And so
they do that every day.
They do that every single meeting.
Wow.
Whether it's the maintenance staff meeting, whether it's the executive team meeting, whether it's the property management company meeting, they do that with every single meeting. By doing that, you're highlighting that part of the job that actually matters, the actual impact.
Why
right?
are we here?
Not sitting around like, hey, let's give it up for Bob because, he completed his rounds quicker than anybody else. No. Talk about the further impact. Allow yourself to be emotional with it. That's where the real rubber meets the road. We as human beings, we crave, right? We have a deep desire to know that our work matters. And how do we do that? By talking about the actual impact of that work. And it could work with any role, right? If you're willing to go deep enough, you can easily do that.
And we have the technology available today to collect and to distribute that information.
Absolutely.
Efficiently. And as humans, we need to be reminded every day that we're loved by our loved ones and that our work matters, that our work has purpose. That's brilliant. Okay, I want 2 more.
Two more? Well, we talked earlier about how we're constantly being influenced by the things that come in and out of our lives. I would say that we need to be managing our influences and managing the influences of our team members. All right. If we're not managing our influences are managing us. So if we're not cognizant of things we're allowing to come into our brain psychologically, we're not in control of ourselves, are we?
Right.
Exactly. So it starts with saying no to stuff that we know is detrimental to us.
That's tough to do.
Yeah, especially when they have endless scroll now on every app.
Right. What does that look like in a practical execution?
Well, so it's harder than you think, right? Because it takes an individual to show discipline, right? Because we know that people's access to all sorts of media is habitual, right? It becomes a habit. I need to check Facebook, then I'm going to check Twitter, then I'm going to go to Instagram, right? It becomes a habit.
Don't
right?
forget
Close
X.
this app, jump to this app, and it's X, yeah. And we have to break that pattern that we've created, right? So pattern interruptions are a huge piece of that, right? Anything you can do to kind of shift your pattern. So people talk about how they get stuck in like ruts at work, right? They feel like it doesn't matter. And it's because we slip into a pattern and we go and do these things. But if you could find a way to kind of jog your brain out of, have you ever driven home from work and like you don't remember how you got there, but you know you drove it?
Right. Too often.
Exactly.
Too often.
And so by changing our routines, by changing our habits, right? It can really impact that. So like I've suggested to people that like just friends of mine, like, man, I can't get over this thing. It feels like every day is like the last. It's like, take a different route to work. Just decide to drive a different way.
Yeah.
You know why? Because all of a sudden now you're forced to be present in that moment.
Yeah.
It's going to force you to be present in other moments. And so the more time you can spend forcing yourself to actually be not just physically, but psychologically present in that moment, the better off you're going to be. The second we turn off our brains, we log on, and then we tune out. And it's a terrible, terrible pattern.
I'm thinking of a I think it's a Jeff Bezos policy that he set early on. No meetings shall be scheduled that could be an email. Or what's the pizza rule? The another rule that they had was no meetings larger than a large pizza can feed.
Well, because you lose momentum when you have
Right.
that many people around.
Right.
I agree. I think that the larger the meeting, the less likely it is to be effective with what you're trying to accomplish, unless it is like a meeting that I proctor, right, where it's a group full of people.
Of course.
But absolutely. I think a lot gets disseminated the wrong way, and then things get off the rails. People bring their own emotions in. I'm a huge fan of the 15-minute meeting.
Sure. Or standing meeting.
Oh, those are great too.
Yes. Okay.
Or planking meeting.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's a good one. Wowzers. I don't
And
know
the meeting was
about
done
that.
in a minute and a half. You know? But I think the physical discomfort forces you to face what you really needed to deal with, right? Like the standing meeting or those sorts of things. But I think if you cut it down to 15 minutes, you will expand or shrink the time of that meeting, right, to what it needs to be. And I think the reason I have been in a lot of hour meetings that should have been 10 minutes or less. But by time constraining it, it forces people to get down to what really needs to get done.
All right. So we have customer stories.
Yeah.
We have 15-minute meetings. One more.
Well, stories of impact. It doesn't have to be
Stories
about
of
customers.
impact. Okay. One more.
Well, and I think we touched on this earlier. It's moving towards meaning. Forget what the role is when somebody in that role does. We really need to think about what doing great work in that role means. We need to be forcing our team members into the deep end of the pool to have that emotional connection to their contribution.
The deep end of the pool.
The deep end of the pool. You know how I came up with that?
No.
All right, so I was not
You got kids. I'm afraid to ask.
And so I wasn't a strong swimmer as a kid, right? But we used to go to the neighborhood pool all the time. We never had our own pool. I used to go to the neighborhood pool and we'd play, and there'd be a bunch of other kids. And one day we were playing and having fun in the shallow end of the pool, and some older kids showed up, and they were like, "Hey, y'all come play. We're gonna go play this game, Sharks and Minnows." And I don't know if you know the game Sharks and Minnows, but you have one person treading water in the deep end, and all the minnows are on the side, and they have to try and get to the other side of the pool. And so I watched for a while. It looked like they were having fun, but like I wasn't comfortable in the deep end of the pool. I'm not a good swimmer. So I sat there and I just hung out in the shallow end of the pool. Why? Because it was safe. It was comfortable. It was what I was used to. But I'm watching all my friends that are better swimmers and these older kids having the time of their life, laughing and jumping and having a blast over in the deep end of the pool. And luckily that day, my fear of missing out beat my fear of drowning. I decided to go join them. All right. So I went over to the deep end of the pool, and it was scary at first, and I was worried, and there was anxiety, but I forced myself to do it because it ended up being the funnest game ever. And it became something I loved to play. And I slowly got comfortable. But I think for individuals in their role,
Right.
it's easy to stay in the shallow end of the pool. It's a lot more to put yourself out there emotionally. It's hard to make that effort to jump into the deep end of the pool.
Get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Stay there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good advice. I like that. So we've covered. We talked about AI.
We have.
It's not gonna take all our jobs.
Yeah.
We've talked about the book Purpose or Perish.
We did.
Right.
We talked about the paddle.
We talked about the paddle. We talked about anxiety. Right. What are we missing? What are we missing?
I don't know. I think we hit everything.
I think we did. I think we did pretty well today.
I think so.
Yeah. We have to check out that book, Purpose or Perish. If you DM us, maybe we can get you an autographed copy, signed by the author. Perhaps.
I don't know if you can get him.
Right? He's a highly sought after dude.
I don't know about that.
Well, on behalf of the Unboxing the Office podcast, Joshua Evans, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
This one delivered.
I hope so.
Corporate culture, health and wellness, they're all connected. On behalf of our sponsor, Hot Logic, thank you. I think that I think we've moved the football, so to speak, here.
I sure hope so.
Yeah, and I dare I say I'm looking forward to the next one. DM us with questions. All of our links, including links to Joshua M. Evans and the book, will be in the caption. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.
Good night and good luck.
Yes, that's the Unboxing the Office podcast.